here to talk about the mental health and stress during COVID-19. I'm Tia, and my partner Katie and I will be presenting to you. And a huge thanks to our research team, Chelsea, Jackie, Liz, and Chrissy. Through the presentation, we're going to talk about the mental health and stress brought on by the pandemic and how it has affected children and parenting, businesses, our personal lives, as well as marriage and finances, access to mental health services, and then finally, we'll touch on some tips to take care of the mind and reduce stress triggers. Starting with children, they seem to be experiencing the same unprecedented effects that the COVID-19 virus has had on adults to their social and emotional well-being. During the quarantine in Italy and Spain, a survey was conducted on 1,143 parents who had children aged 3 to 18 years old. This survey pertained to the mental health effects on children who were in quarantine. Their survey found that 85.7% of parents noticed an emotional and behavioral change in their child. The changes are ranked as follows. 76.6% from the poll had difficulty concentrating, with 52% reporting boredom. 39% of the parents saw irritability in their children. 38.8% experienced restlessness. 38% were seen to be experiencing much more nervousness. 31.3 said loneliness, and lastly, at 30.4 and 30.1 were reported to have uneasiness and worrying frequently. So clearly, the pandemic has aided raising anxiety in children. There are other struggles as well as not having that normal school experience and having a whole household adjust to at-home learning. Children that have special needs are falling through the cracks without that in-person one-on-one instruction and help. Along with school being completely different, these kids are missing on a lot of firsts, like their first day doing middle school or high school, riding the bus, prom, team sports, and so many things that we've seemingly taken for granted before COVID-19. And then, while parenting during COVID has not been easy for most parents, a few challenges many parents have faced are not having the ability to spend time alone. This causes increased stress triggers for parents who are unable to unwind after a difficult day, creating structure within the home. Many parents have faced the challenges of keeping a consistent schedule for their child, especially parents who work from home and try to manage the child's distance learning as well as their own workload. Families with multiple children have faced challenges of having multiple personalities colliding. One child who might be introverted could experience higher levels of anxiety due to staying home all day, and extroverted children may find themselves feeling lonely and bored. Children with separated parents could be more affected by having to stay at home only with one parent and only in that household in order to social distance because the one, causing the one parent to take on total daily responsibilities. And then I'll hand it over to Katie.
All right. Hello, everybody. In addition, businesses seem to have taken one of the biggest hits. Small business owners are being forced to close because of their loss of clientele, lockdowns, and lack of patrons, and because they are unable to secure PPP and EDIL grants to cover overhead costs and pay their employees. Job loss and financial struggles during a global economic downturn have been associated with a long-lasting decline in mental health. As well as that, lockdowns, social distancing, businesses being shut down, all affect our mental health because humans need to socialize. It's been said that even after the pandemic has ended, the way we socialize and interact with each other will be changed forever. We are going to be even more aware of the spread of germs, how the older generations are affected by our actions, and how we handle grief. The SARS global outbreak in 2003 was associated with a 30% increase in suicides in people over the age of 65. Strategies like quarantining that are necessary to minimize viral spread can have a negative psychological impact. It can cause post-traumatic stress symptoms, depression, and insomnia. In particular, younger generations have been affected. Beyond getting sick, many young adults' social, emotional, and mental well-being have been impacted by the pandemic. An online survey conducted on the general population in China found that college students are more likely to experience stress, anxiety, and depression than others during the pandemic. These results suggest monitoring and promoting mental health of youth in order to reduce the negative impact of the quarantine. However, reducing the negative impact will not expunge some of the long lasting effects that the isolation, grief, and stress will have on these younger generations. Stephen Taylor, author of The Psychology of Pandemics and professor in psychiatry at the University of British Columbia, argues that for an unfortunate minority of people, perhaps 10 to 15%, life will not return to normal due to the impact of the pandemic on their mental well-being.
Next, let's talk about the impact it has had on marriage and finances. Financial problems can affect how we think, act, and feel about our partner in general. This type of stress can cause hostility and marital dissatisfaction. Stressful events affect our moods and make us more sensitive. As a result, we don't think clearly and tend to focus on the things that we don't like about the relationship. A study was done with married couples, deeming them into three categories: decliners, those that feel immense stress from the pandemic directly affecting their relationship; the steadies, which those who have had a steady consistency in their relationship and don't feel excess stress on their relationship; and the improvers, those who feel their relationships have improved or gotten stronger since the pandemic. 1 in 3, or 33% of those in the decliner category, reported that the financial distress has caused enough turmoil to consider their marriage in trouble, compared to only 26% of those in the steadies category feeling similarly. The financial situation that most are in has gotten worse since March due to the continued effect of the pandemic. 35% of those whose household finances did improve within the improvers category still reported that their relationship faced new stressors, followed by 45% of the decliners category stating the same thing. Simply put, the stress of the pandemic has created such financial turmoil that it continues to have negative effects on relationships such as marriages, even when finances have somewhat improved. And then next, I'd like to talk about how much of an impact it's had on the population due to the disruption to mental health services. Between June and August of 2020, the World Health Organization, or WHO, implemented a research across 6 of its regions evaluating the impacts of COVID-19 on mental, neurological, and substance use services, and how these regions are making changes to overcome these challenges. From the study, we found out that 30% of people experienced issues accessing medications for mental, neurological, and substance use disorders. 75 to 78% have experienced at least partial disruptions to school and workplace mental health services. More than 35% of people have had disruptions to emergency intervention services, including severe substance use withdrawals and prolonged seizures. And 60% of people who have experienced issues accessing mental health services to vulnerable groups, including 72% of children, 70% of older adults, and women in need of postnatal care. And I'll hand it back over to Katie.
Right. So that leaves the big question. How can we minimize the stress and take care of ourselves in the middle of a pandemic? Doing the smallest things to take care of your mind and body will help take care of problems that might arise with your mental health. To start off with, getting enough sleep. Go to bed and get up at the same times each day. Stick close to your typical schedule, even if you're staying at home. Another thing you can do is participate in regular physical activity. Regular physical activity and exercise can help reduce anxiety and improve mood. Find an activity that includes movement, such as dance or exercise apps. Get outside in an area that makes it easy to maintain distance from people, such as a nature trail or your own backyard. Another thing you can do is eating healthy. Choosing a well-balanced diet. Avoid loading up on junk food and refined sugar. Limit your caffeine intake as it aggravates stress and anxiety. Avoid tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. If you smoke tobacco or if you vape, you're already at a higher risk of lung disease. Because COVID-19 affects the lungs, your risk increases even more. Using alcohol to try to cope with will only make matters worse and reduce your coping skills. Avoid taking drugs to cope unless your doctor prescribed medication to you. Limiting screen time. Turn off your electronic devices for some time each day, including 30 minutes before bedtime. Make a conscious effort to spend less time in front of a screen, television, tablet, computer, and phone. And lastly, relax and recharge. Set aside some time for yourself. Even a few minutes of quiet time can be refreshing and help to quiet your mind and reduce anxiety. Many people benefit from practices such as deep breathing, Tai Chi, yoga, or meditation. Soak in a bubble bath, listen to music or listen to a book, whatever helps you relax. Select a technique that works for you and practice it regularly. Not only can you do proactive things to recharge and reset our mental health, but just by avoiding some things, you can avoid triggers that may set off unhealthy mental practices. So, to start off with, keep your regular routine. Maintaining a regular schedule is important to your mental health. In addition to sticking to a regular bedtime routine, keep consistent times for meals, bathing and getting dressed, work or study schedules, and exercising. Another thing that you can do is staying busy. A distraction can get you away from the cycle of negative thoughts that feed anxiety and depression. Enjoy hobbies that you can do at home, such as puzzling, knitting. You can even do yoga. All those things that I've suggested as exercise, you can do in the confines of your home. Number 3, focus on some positive thoughts. Choose to focus on positive things in your life instead of dwelling on how bad you feel. Maybe consider starting each day by listing the things that you're thankful for. And lastly, taking a break from the news. I know we all want to stay informed and keep up to date information. However, you're constantly looking at bad news, horrific tragedies, and stressful situations, it can trigger anxiety and depression. If you start feeling overwhelmed by the world today, take a step back. You can always come back to it later when you're feeling better. Lastly, if you're having trouble keeping these stress levels down, there are resources such as Washington's Listens website that can help you find resources and give you tips on staying healthy during this pandemic.